Oh, it's getting hot out there, guys.
Well, you know what that means.
It's gonna be May.
Okay, Justin Timberlake.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that too. But yeah, it's getting warm out. Spring's here. I know some guys have already been screwing around with it and stuff like that. It's nice to hear it going on. But it's gas blowback season.
Definitely. After last weekend, definitely gonna have to say it's gas blowback season.
I don't know. It's gonna get wet.
Okay,
It's-
come on.
Hey,
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Dad. It's gas blowback season.
Might not be short season yet, okay? But it's gas blowback season.
Oh, okay. Episode 45, guys. Welcome back to another episode
Oh,
of Panther
oh,
Airsoft Floating
What?
Table Talk.
Okay.
That was our.
Hello there.
I usually never warn these guys when we start.
Wow.
It's got,
That's gonna be
Episode
embarrassing.
45. Welcome
That's
back.
Hey.
Moving on.
All right. Any
Okay.
updates from our last podcast? That was a pretty short. Actually, it was a long podcast. I didn't realize how long it was until I uploaded a video, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I was like, what? What are you
Wow.
talking about?
Radios. That's all there is to
Well,
it.
you guys went into a lot of really useful information, so I hope the guys we kind of warned everyone in the beginning, is to dissect that one slowly, come back to it or something like that, you know. Because yeah, you guys put out a lot of knowledge that you and Mr. Sharp have and everything like that, and I appreciate it, of course, and I always appreciate the helping hands you guys give me when I do require any comms help and everything like that. But
Yep.
yeah,
It
like,
is.
it was a great podcast.
It was a good podcast. Since we're talking about you, Mr. Mac, any updates at the field?
Yeah. Well, right now, guys, as we mentioned in the beginning too, the weather's getting nice, obviously. So that does mean that people are, more willing to come out. The summer airsofters are coming back, um, which is great, obviously. Again, please be mindful of our COVID regulations and restrictions and everything like that, guys, when it comes from the province, when it comes from our rules at the field and everything like that. That being said, guys, if you were out last weekend, thank you again for being so patient and cooperative with just everything that's going on. If you didn't know, Panther's very busy. We got multiple things going on when it comes to the film industry and everything like that. Obviously, I'm not at liberty to tell you guys what's going on, but there's things going on, and you guys can see things going on, and they are taking up a lot of your space because things are going on. And unfortunately, guys, that will
Things are
come
going
to
on.
things are going on, right? Basically, that's going to come to fruition this weekend again, and unfortunately, we will be restricted airsoft play to cross the river and to city. So, obviously, guys, that comes down to numbers dependent and everything like that. But we are going to try and facilitate safe gameplay and everything like that for everybody. Other than that, guys, I know a few people had a chance to kind of try out and check out some of the changes Tack and I have made to City and everything like that. Small, but they're getting there and everything like that. Appreciate all the structure, constructive criticism that I received and everything like that. We'll talk about that later. Other than that, guys, sorry. Yes, guys, my friends that like to go and shoot targets. Unfortunately, the movies have taken over your space as well. Unfortunately, right now, the back range will be closed, guys. So, yeah, everything at the bottom of the hill by the ASG shack, guys, just please don't even go down there. If you do need to like range in your guns or anything like that, we'll deal with that as is. Yeah, that's about the goings on at the field, man. Airsoft news.
No, it's Airsoft News.
Oh, Airsoft News. Hello. News. Airsoft. Yes.
Tack with the
Well,
Airsoft news.
I'm gonna have to tell you guys, not a lot of news going on. But what I do have for you guys is that for everyone again who was asking about those Odin speed loaders,
Mhm.
they slowly started trickling in at a lot of locations. I remember mentioning Trigger last time. It looks like Black Blitz has also stocked up on those Odins. So for all you guys buying those cheapo ones and complaining to me that Odins aren't in stock, Odins are in stock. Also multiple colors.
Wow,
Moving
so you
from
got
there,
blue, red, black, yellow, and
transparent.
transparent. Cool. So that's Black Blitz.
I guess, yeah. And that's Black Blitz. And moving on, EMG recently announced a lineup of base plates. Really cool looking base plates, multicolored base plates. All the way, actually, like really cool colors. Personally, I like the titanium blue out of all of that, but
Red.
that's me.
Sorry, red. I'm gonna go
See,
with red.
I knew you were gonna go with that. Like, okay.
You're never gonna lose it in the woods. What?
I don't want to put any color on my gun.
Okay.
Okay, that's Mac for you guys. And then after that, I know that this kind of slipped in. It wasn't really mentioned before, but our friends in Australia seem to be having a problem with now they're attacking their Nerf gun. Just the
And
whole loose basis of it is that because someone was able to shoot a gel blaster BB out of I believe it was just a Springer Nerf gun, it was now deemed a firearm based off of their laws. So they're now having to deal with another ridiculous issue down there, and I feel for them. Apparently, someone to go all the way down and register one of those single shot, super trumpet looking Nerf blasters. I feel for them.
I feel
But other
bad
than
for
that,
them.
guys, that's it for the airsoft news. Right back to the podcast with Poi.
Yeah. So as far as C21 goes, really no update. Honestly, guys, hasn't been an update since April 23rd. That was 3 weeks ago when they last talked about it. So really, they haven't voted it in yet. They've dissected it a lot more now, but still no updates. I feel like they're gonna liberals are gonna drag their feet on this, and the rest of the parties are trying to figure out what to do. So we might see this for the long haul, guys. Unfortunately.
This ain't it.
Yeah.
This ain't it.
This ain't it.
Other than that, I'm excited. It's my topic. So it's getting warmer outside, as you're saying there, and it's time to dust off those gas blowbacks, guys.
Exactly. Tell me what you did all weekend.
For the last 3 weeks, I've been ordering parts. I've been repairing my gas blowbacks, and probably not going to use them because thanks to C21. Anyways, jokes aside. So my love for gas blowback basically started when I started Airsoft, guys. Again, when I started Airsoft, I jumped into AEG. Why? Because I was smart. I knew that gas blowbacks were, like, I guess let's just start here by saying, downsides like temperature, not very good over here because it gets cold. We actually have winter, we actually have spring, fall. We get the seasons, right? So, like, we're gonna talk about gases. We're gonna talk about what gas blowback is. But yeah, that's like there was a huge thing for gas blowbacks for looking cool because of the fact that it acts like almost like it's real steel counterpart. You could, if you like weapon manipulation, nomenclature on how to use it and stuff, racking it, like that's probably everyone's favorite with gas blowback. Come on, let's be honest here. When you had your first Glock or gas blowback pistol, what was the first thing you wanted to do?
Slide release.
Yeah, rack that thing a bunch of times, right? I mean, everybody knows that. And then when people see me with the gas blowback, the first thing I give them is like, hey, go ahead, rack the bolt. The pleasure of the pleasure of just like racking it, having the slide lock, and then releasing it, right? That's the feel for it. But for me, it's more than that. It's become more than that after so many years. But again, from the very beginning, I wanted one, right? And my first advice for everybody who's gonna get into this is make sure you have an AEG first before you dive into gas blowback. Why? Because you're only gonna play at one season, and that starts between now and all the way up to September. Right? You're very limited in your playtime, and if that's what you want, then go right ahead. But I'm gonna give you a bunch of pointers on how to maintain it later on in this podcast, as well as defeating some myths and how to get started and maintenance and stuff. So let's dive right into it. Actually, what was your guys' sort of introduction to gas blowbacks?
Zach, do you want to start or do you want?
Well,
I mean, we kind of
you,
got into it at the same time, but like, I know we have like just a couple of different pistols each and stuff like that.
yeah,
That's
well,
basically where we started, guys. I
pretty
started out
much, yeah. I
with
think
me,
everyone starts with
Yeah.
pistols, just
Mhm.
to be quite honest.
Yeah. And now we do have a gas blowback rifle. It is amazing. We both love it and cherish it and share it.
Well, yeah, it's been used quite a bit actually. I had to
Oh yeah,
replace the trigger unit on that.
she's a hoe. Yeah.
So you guys start off with gas blowback pistol. That is a good point because
Mhm.
Yeah.
everybody does start with that, and
Mm.
I guess
You
we
should.
yeah,
Should.
you should.
Yeah.
We'll get into the maintenance portion of it because this does apply to pistols as well. I know we talked about we had a Glock series a couple of episodes ago. I think 20 or 25 episodes ago. We had a Glock series sort of dive into it and then how to maintain it and stuff. But we'd never really talked about the system of gas blowback.
Mhm.
So I guess we could start off with a little bit of introduction to what is a gas blowback. So gas blowback is like the most popular gas powered system compared to, let's say, an HPA, for instance, which is basically the ultimate like high pressure air system. There's a reason why us over here in the north we like to tap our mags because we're gonna get into the common gases for gas blowback systems because HPA is like by far the most sort of superior system. But remember, HPA does not cover. It's not a true gas blowback system. You're basically taking high pressure air and you're controlling it with a micro. What is it, like a micro switch? If you're doing
Regular. Yeah.
yeah, so if you're doing that way, um, gas powered airsoft guns are uses like a pneumatic potential energy store. So you're using the compressed gas to drive the action, right? So that's what gas blowback is you're using the compressed gas to basically not only shoot out the BB from from using the nozzle system, shooting it out from the front of your hop-up system and then coming out of the barrel, right? So you have all the components of like a regular airsoft gun, but you're also having to push back the action or the gases blowing back the system so that you could then drive a like a bolt carrier system all the way back, right? Using springs, using air, using the pressures on the gases, push it all the way back, and then load another BB into the hop-up system, right? And then you repeat the cycle again, right? So usually the gas cans have internal storage, which is usually stored, like the energy is stored within the magazine. Now, usually in the magazine, sometimes it is stored at the back of the stock, or either on if it's like a shotgun, it'll be at the back of the stock, or the what
Gas
do you
tube.
call it? Yeah, gas tube, or the
Pistol grip.
the pistol grip.
Yeah.
So that's where it stores its energy, right? Compared to AEG, where is the energy stored?
Batteries.
Batteries, yes, but what is it? What does
It's
the battery and motor do?
It's a spring system,
Yeah,
right?
the springs, like it winds it all the way back and then stores it on that potential energy from that one spring and then pushes it forward, right? Is that how it goes? Tack,
Tac.
tack,
Well, I would say that
there is air involved.
Yeah, it's a pneumatic system, but essentially it's run off of the batteries.
Yeah.
Springs and gears.
Right? Like if you're gonna equate the two, right? Your gas is your battery, right? Like without any batteries, you wouldn't be able to shoot the gun regardless. Just like if you didn't have any gas, you wouldn't be able to shoot it.
For gas
right? Like
blowback
springer, right? Like as a springer, right? You can just pull it, and that in itself is being able to pressurize it, and then so that would be the whole thing.
With the gas blowback system, the spring is actually the reverse. You want it to reset back into the system. So you're having the gas push back on a spring and then having the spring push forward
to reset
the action, right?
Yeah.
So once the BB leaves the hop-up system, right, the blowback simulates recoil. That's the fun in gas blowback systems, is basically the simulated recoil. it cyclically loads another BB into the hop-up chamber from the magazine using the feed ramp and guide. That's basically it. That's basically gas blowback system right off the bat. I hope that's a little bit, like that sort of like puts gas blowback in place in in a category right there.
And that's not to be confused with the so-called non-blowback, which still use gas. It's still a gas system, but it's not a blowback system.
No.
Yeah, there are guns out there.
So now we're diving into open and closed bolt systems, right? So open bolt is the most popular sort of choice for a lot of people because it simulates. Yeah, I agree, but I've actually used both systems, right?
Well, didn't Wii's old system technically was an open or closed bolt system?
Yes, the old system was closed bolt systems, and that's why you see online you could purchase a whole bunch of kits that convert open bolt into closed bolt systems. Also, pro tip, if you're looking for spare parts, buy a open bolt kit, because that is a good way to sort of get spare parts for gas blowback systems, because they have
what I did.
They're pretty cheap. They're around $70, and depends on the gun.
You'll save yourself about $40-$50 by getting the kit itself, and with that you'll get yourself like an extra barrel, stock barrel, extra hop up.
So it changes the entire system from shooting from a closed bolt system, which is a lot more reliable. I could tell you that right now. Certainly, same thing with like AEGs and stuff, right? Unless you're using GBLS, which is both a hybrid system of closed, like an open bolt system, which you could then rack the entire system, right? But the potential stored energy is still stored in a motor, and not motor, but it still uses a battery for that stored energy. Right, versus in gas here, when you use a closed bolt system or an open bolt system, you're still using the gas pressures from the magazine or wherever the gas is coming from to, propel the BB forward, right? But with the true gas blowback system, you're having to also use the energy to then drive the bolt carrier back and then push it forward again with the spring. So, yeah, the differences in open bolt and closed bolt is closed bolt, you don't see any action at all, right? It looks like it's driving something, but it's only moving it just by a little bit, and then having to reset again, back out. Sort of like how an AEG works, where the nozzle goes in and out of the system, so that it just loads a BB into place while the entire spring mechanism and motor basically drives the pneumatic system back and forth.
Okay.
With an open bolt, you're having to use that entire system, just like how it works in real life. You're having to use that entire system to basically simulate loading.
The bolt carrier group and everything,
Yeah, so the entire action is all an entire giant moving part. A lot of power or gas pressure is required to then move that part, right? So that is the huge difference there. And yeah, this is why gas blowback is great, because for me, I like to simulate what its real steel counterpart does, is basically having to, what we're talking about at the very beginning, having to rack the entire system back, inspect it, right? And then having the BB leave the hop-up chamber and then have it dance around in the open bolt system, and you're like, crap, I don't want to load another BB in because there's another BB dancing around, so you gotta flip it around, right? And then make sure it falls over, and then shake it out, and then have the whole system in.
Exactly.
These are just common GBB sort of.
Oh, did we lose Boy there?
No, I am here.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Oh,
I'm back.
All right.
Okay.
But yes, Boy, rack it, rack it, and rack it again.
There's a fun in that. So you got your action. You got your nomenclature of real steel weapons, right? Being able to rack it, right? I would not recommend loading a full, like a bunch of BBs in there and just keep racking it all the way. You're basically going to jam that gun, like that GBB up, because you're just unloading a BB and then you're loading another one in, and then there's still like 2 in the chamber, 3, 4, 5. Then you have a bunch of crushed BBs in there. So not a good idea.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. So now we've talked about the gas blowback action, and you know, the joys of having recoil, the joys of being able to rack the system, being able to play around with an actual mechanical, right? Mechanical sort of action in place, right? In AEGs, you don't get that certain feel of racking the bolt because the charging handle is plugged
A
into
dummy.
a dummy charging handle. It's usually plugged into a spring, and B, you don't get that feeling of that bolt release because actually no, in AEGs they actually simulate it pretty well now.
Some
Some of them, right?
cover
But
they have a hop up shield, and then yes, if you rack it back to exposure hop up, they will stay back until you press that to slide release, and that'll
yeah,
simulate kind of.
they're getting close
It's
to
cute.
when you actually
Cute.
unload like an empty mag, it'll stop shooting.
So yeah, there are a couple of the newer generation guns that have some kind of a mag well sensor or something along the lines where they will not shoot if the mag is empty, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because some people will think that their gun's broken, and then they're like, "Oh God, I gotta reload."
So the biggest sort of topic here to cover, and when people talk about gas systems, they simply talk about products. I hate talking about products, right? I more look into the mechanics of it, and that's why I fell in love with it because, you know, again, simulating the real steel counterpart, right? It's the mechanics of it. One thing that doesn't get covered a lot, and I hope a lot of people, you know, try and cover this, is like common gases that we use for GBB, right? We're talking about chemical gases that propel our system, right? We get that gas blowback action, right? That's done through like vapor pressures from certain like chemicals. In this case, we're all familiar with propane, right? And how
propane accessories.
Oh God, I sound like Hank Hill now.
I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there.
I know.
God dang it, Boomhauer.
Propane, gonna light that flame.
That boy ain't right.
That's the wrong show. That's the wrong show, Tony.
All right, let me take a sip here.
We need a sip, Brett.
So again, gases are not covered a lot when talking about gas blowback systems, right? We're talking about the action, we're talking about how cool it is, we're talking about, you know, like simulating the real thing, right? But it's not that much people mention what powers these things, right? We talk about airsoft guns and we don't talk about batteries, right? It's kind of like the same thing.
Unfortunately, that needs to change.
It depends. I feel like it depends on how far into it you are, what you're wanting to learn,
it's
and
like
whatnot.
LiPo versus nickel metal hydrate batteries, and you know all these different
types
of batteries.
About batteries, you run some NIMS.
Yeah. So it's also important to talk about this in gas blowback systems because it is what powers, it is what stores our energy, right, and releases the energy into the system, right? So just for starters, like
what's our first two most popular ones? Obviously, right?
Sorry, I forgot to add like temperature and pressure also plays a role in gas blowback,
100%,
right?
100%.
Huge factors.
Especially
this affects it a lot.
Yeah, this is why it's part of the disadvantage, right? Because of the fact that it's a seasonal play, because of the fact that we are using a system, like a chemical based system to power our gas blowbacks, which relies a lot on temperature. So let's start off with the first one. I guess we'll start off with green gas and propane because that is the popular option. That is, yes, right there. I believe that's Puff Dino. That is the popular option here. So Puff Dino gas. That's just good job.
I meant to do that.
Also, remember it's under pressure, so just
a little later.
Just a little bit of warning, guys. Make sure you do not puncture a lot of these things, right? Because it is we're working with dangerous gases as well, and we'll get into that in a bit here. They're pressurized, right? And we'll get into the maintenance portion of it afterwards. But green gas or propane, they're basically the same thing. They run off of a vapor pressure of about 853 kilopascal or about 125 psi in 20-degree weather. Right, you go below that, and you're starting to lose kilopascal or psi on a lot of these things, right? That's why it is always recommended to play gas blowback above 20 degrees, right? And this is why when I say, we're going to wait for nicer weather when we're playing gas blowback, this is the reason why, is because I know what the system runs on. I am used to what the system runs on, and I know, how temperamental it is when it comes to, differing weathers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So green gas and propane basically run off the same thing. It's just that green gas has silicone lubricants in it to make sure that it does not sort of break your gas blowback system. It always keeps it lubricated. It makes sure that it doesn't run your system dry. Propane, on the other hand, will run your system dry because that is what they're designed for, is, to run your barbecue. And propane also has that really bad rotten egg smell, right? And green gas does not. They remove that smell because we don't need it. We're not cooking propane, and it comes in a small bottle, so it's not as dangerous as, let's say, like a 20-pound or a 5-pound bottle of propane canister, right?
Well, and on top of that too, it has a unique smell in and of itself with the silicone lubricant mixed in with it. So, like, the whole purpose of the rotten egg smell and propane being so that there's a leak.
Yeah.
You can kind of do the same thing with green gas, although,
much more subtle. Yeah.
Yeah, a little more subtle. Yeah.
So, with propane, right, you're using a propane adapter, right, which you screw into a 5-pound bottle. Right, don't put it into a full-on big ass bottle.
No.
I honestly haven't seen that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
if
so
someone's attempted that.
No.
You gotta make sure when you're filling up your magazines with the propane can, that you make sure you take that 5-pound and you inverse.
Do it upside down.
Do it upside down.
God, yes.
Right? So this
I don't know how many times people do that in front of me. I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, is that they'll have a magazine and they'll have the all right. They will have the magazine in their hand, they'll fill it like that.
And
then they'll ask me why their gun isn't working, or
that only works for certain magazines.
Remember, propane works off of vapor pressure, but it also needs the liquids that are in there to make it work, right? So you gotta reverse it, make sure that you get some of that liquids into that magazine, right? So you could get that vapor pressure in, and that's how you get your pressure going. And with propane, you gotta flip it around. And pro tip for you guys, if you wanna simulate what green gas is, you basically take your adapter, propane adapter, right, unscrew it, flip it around, and then drop about do you guys know what silicone oil is for gas blowbacks? You probably get it from what's that grenade brand?
Airsoft Innovations.
Airsoft Innovation grenades.
Mm-hmm.
They actually
have an adapter.
Yeah, they also have an adapter. They also have lubricant oil in there, that you could drop into the grenade itself. But I actually take that and then drop it into the nozzle, or the inside of the adapter for propane canisters. Drop 3 drops into there and then screw it in. That'll last me the entire day, and then I'll fill my mags in. So what that does is I make sure that my magazines do not run dry. Because if you run it dry, that means that you're gonna wear out your O-rings inside your magazines. Okay,
breaking the seal.
Yeah, you're gonna break seals, and O-rings is a big thing for gas, especially when you're working with gas systems. Once you break your O-rings, right, or you get what we call leaking mags, because when you take 2 metal parts together and build a magazine, right, and then you try to fill it up, what's gonna happen without an O-ring? It's gonna leak.
Mm-hmm.
Right, metals like that, especially in the weather, right? If it gets cold, right, which liquid gas does, it gets cold, right? It'll basically take that metal and shrink it, and then it'll seep out into whatever cracks you have. An O-ring basically expands, right, to a point where you're squishing it into cracks and crevices, and then it won't leak, right? So that's the number. Yeah. So everywhere in a magazine where you have your fill valve, where you have your knocker valve, and as well as the in between, the seams of the magazine, so that you can make it whole, there's always a O-ring or some sort of filler in there that's made out of rubber to make sure that no vapors escape, right? That's how you properly hold and store your energy into a magazine. So that's a little bit of green gas and propane. That is what everybody uses. There are there pros and cons? Yes, right? We're starting off with 20 degrees at 120 psi or 853 kilopascals. That is, I don't want to dive into the false advertising market right now, but there is no standardization for what these color codes are and stuff when we're talking about green gas, red gas, black gas, or blue gas even. It's just, these are just marks of how like chemical based compounds or gases work, right? And that's I'm just using these numbers because I like using numbers. So we're starting off with green gas, propane gas. That's what they're working as. So now we're gonna go back lower, and we're gonna go to blue gas, is what they call it, or what they call 134A gas. So you should be able to find 134A gas in an airsoft store, because if someone sells TMs, we all know TMs shoot at a, well, especially in Japan, right? We shoot at a lower FPS. So yeah, 134 gas is basically terafluoroethane, is what we call it, or referred to as R134A gas. It's, I think it's like a refrigerator fluid or something like that.
Pretty much. I think the way I would describe it is like it's like the compressed air that you would find in your local computer store and stuff like that. Like it's really, really weak. It's same thing. It's cold.
It's like aerosol, right?
Yeah.
With gases like these, you also run into a point where some of these gases are illegal to use now because of the fact that they're ozone depleting aerosol sprays or aerosol materials, right? So
oh no.
Not a lot of people talk about these, but you know, back in the 90s when hairsprays used to be a thing, right? They were filled with low pressure gases so that they could push out the chemicals that they had in them, you know, to keep, you know, to spray into your hair or spray into the environment, right? But the problem is the gases that they were using were also ozone depleting, so that's why we had that big ozone layer like hole and stuff in the South Pole, which has then been fixed now because of certain regulations to limit the use of terafluoroethane materials or any of these gases. So I don't want to talk about it, but airsofters out there, be responsible with your gases, right?
Well, and also like
just run green gas.
A reminder for a lot of people too is that when you play with GBB and stuff like that, there's always these extra things, right? So the extra things being CO2 canisters, your green gas canisters, which means you're going to have a little more waste, which means you need to be a little more mindful.
Yep.
And, you know, not just throw your trash all the way around. It's bad enough that we have our BBs trashed all over the place.
Thank
we
God
love,
they're
if you love your hobby,
Yeah.
we love our environment, guys, especially playing at Panther. Let's do our part and make sure that we're not wasting all of these things, right? So anyways, I believe, you know, 134A gas or blue gas, there's also another name for it that the Japanese uses. What is it?
I don't know if it's a huge thing in Japan, but I just know that I've heard a lot of people just call it duster gas.
Duster gas.
And I think that comes from tax saying, like, again, this is like the same level of gas that it's an aerosol spray that you carry for like computer dusting, like, you know.
Well, like I'm pretty sure the stuff in the computer cans is CO2. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, is it?
I think I can't, you know, be sure about it off the top of my head, but it's pretty weak. Like, you know, you spray that for a little bit, the cooldown on it is like really, really crazy. Like I'm sure everyone who's tried to clean their computer with that stuff will use it for less than 30 seconds and throw it out the window because it's crap.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing for gas blowbacks here, right? So we're experimenting with different gases and stuff, right? So the vapor pressure again for these, like blue gas, I guess we'll call it blue gas because it's the lower end of the green gas, is 666 kilopascal, and or that is 100 psi at 25 degrees.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that weak gas.
Yeah. Well, again, right? I'm saying, right? Every time we hear advertisements for, you know, 134A gas or blue gas, right? Again, there is no standardization, right? People can just say like, oh yeah, we're using blue gas, right? But you don't know what's in it, and then they're gonna be like, oh yeah, it's got 125 psi or 100 psi or 800, you know, kilopascals or something like that for vapor pressures, right? But who's really checking, right? So if they've gotten away with it for so long, right, that they've basically gone and say, well, no one's really checking, we could just just lie about it on advertisements, right? And this is why I like to just test a product and then actually test it out on the field and see what works for me or not. Again, it is weather dependent, right? No day is going to be the same temperature throughout, right? If it's going to be a 30-degree day, right, all of these numbers are going to be way off, right? Like, especially if you're in the tropical area, right, you're always going to get a 30-degree day, right, or 28 or whatever, right? And it's always going to be hot, and it depends on things like humidity. Is the magazine in direct heat of the sun, right? Is it warmed up and stuff, or is it in the shade? Is it indoors, right? All these environmentals will take into effect, right? So don't take these numbers right off the bat and say, yeah, no, these numbers are way low. I'm just saying that these numbers I'm just pulling up are basically what they're pulling up in the math of the chemicals that they have, right? They might add something else into the vapors and stuff to make it work even better than its suggested chemical compound or gases, basically. So blue gas, well known for using it for plastic parts. Right, things like, did you know that G&G had a closed bolt gas blowback system? Yes,
like
they
a
did.
rifle, or was it a pistol?
Oh no, it is a rifle, GBBR at this point. Yeah,
I didn't know they made a rifle.
I've used one before. I've experimented with it before. It's very reliable in cold temperatures because you could use regular propane gas and use it on a much colder condition, right? And then it'll shoot consistently because it's a closed bolt system. So, there you go. As far as like blue gas is concerned, we do have it here. It's if you have the option to use it on TM stuff because TM is always plastic. So I think Trigger sells 134A gas puff dynos, I believe, or it's not puff dyno. I think it's another brand, but I've seen it before. It's just I've never used it before. Probably seen someone use it once, but again, hot day, it'll fluctuate in the PSIs and stuff. It'll shoot much harder in a hotter day, right? So next up is red gas. Now, again, red gas, they suggest red gas shoots about like over 170 PSI or something like that, or 1,000 something kilopascals. Again, these numbers are like way off and all that stuff, but what I've noticed is like with red gas they're using HCFC 22 or chloridofluoromethane is the other word for it. Again, another sort of a methane or propane, whatever you want to call it, but it's
another
another methane,
Yeah.
which is basically it's another form of refrigerant coolant. So it's definitely ozone depleting because a lot like this product is basically banned in the U.S. and some parts of the EU as well because it's ozone depleting, right? And it's one of environmental hazards, right? So this
basically stick with green gas.
Yeah, it's propane, but the advertised. Like, not the advertised, the pressures that I see for the vapor pressures that come out of a like chloridofluoride methane is like 900 above like kilopascals, or 135 psi basically, at 20 degrees, right? So if you go up 30 degrees now, you're getting different numbers at this point. You're probably gonna hit those numbers that they're advertising and such. So
the one thing
I would say there's an increase.
Well, the one thing I noticed too is that there's an inconsistency sort of with the measuring of everything. Like I think to measure in 20 degrees Celsius is a little bit misleading.
Yeah.
Like it's actually, well, one, it's good in a sense if they are testing it in colder temperatures, obviously, right? Like, and it'll have a better performance, right, in hotter areas. But at the same time, we all know with higher temperatures means higher pressures, right? Which means there's a chance of it having higher FPS and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is each company is a little different. I've noticed that some companies will throw in like mixtures of isobutane, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have
Okay.
butane in there. So isobutane is like just a gas that's used in aerosol cans, as well as
Camping stoves.
fuel and
Yep.
flame products. And the
Mhm.
reason for that is that the butane part of it is able to quickly vaporize at room temperature. So that's quickly vapor. So essentially, liquid form. You shoot it, vaporizes really quickly. So in that sense, I've seen it used more in like red gas. I've seen sort of like
Yep.
in some companies. But again, um, each company I find is different, and as well as Poy saying that some companies also use a completely different sort of color scale for some reason, which doesn't
And
really make a
numbering
lot of sense.
pattern. So again, no standardization, right? So
Yeah,
it's
that's the
it's hard
lack
it's
of.
hard to nail this down. Again, it comes
Yeah,
from where you are
exactly.
in regionally, where you are locally, and what
Mhm.
the temperature is at that time.
Yeah.
So
The
it's
best example, because it's a good thing that Poy's going through and giving sort of like the actual names of the gas sort of used, just because of the fact that when you look at Puff Dino as an example, they only offer two different versions of their green gas, right?
yeah.
As well as if you
But
look
for
at
some reason they color code
neutral.
it, but it's the same chemicals
Well,
also.
well, exactly. With the Puff Dino one, they have the gray or black can, as well as a white can,
White
right?
can,
One's
yeah.
for wintertime, so as they advertise, and one's for normal use. While with Neutral, they follow like a color scale, right, where it goes from all the way. I believe they have a blue can. I
Yeah.
think I've seen it
That's
online
that's
before,
why
but they
that's
go
why I labeled it
Yeah,
blue
neutral.
gas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they go from blue all the way to black, as
Black,
far
yeah.
as I remember
But
off the top of my head.
since well, I guess we'll jump into the black gas stuff. Like no one really knows what's in it at that point. It's kind of like a mystery to me what's in there, what's in their black gas, because I wanted to figure out what pressures like and what gas vapors are running. Right. I
Mhm.
couldn't
I
find
had a
anything.
can once. I had a can of Neutral once, I think it was. I think.
What does it
It
mention
could,
for what kind of gas vapor they're
Well,
using?
that was only
with that,
red gas, Ty.
no, I had one. But at least I think it was Neutral, because the bottle shape was the same as the red one that I had. But the one thing that I remember anecdotally from it is just that it had a spicy smell to it. Yeah.
That doesn't tell me anything.
I
What?
well,
Like,
yeah.
hey guys, I was shooting my pistol, and then I
I
started
don't
to
know,
smell
man.
like
That's
fucking
that's probably
like
shooting
spicy
an axe
nachos.
bottle spray in there or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, that's the one thing that I remember. It maybe it has a higher mixture of the isobutane in it, because I just know that I've seen one. Um, I wish I could remember what company it was, because they showed us a mixture of like their lower gas having like less isobutane, and as you climb the scale, it had more of it in it, percentage wise or something like that, and then they started replacing certain things. So again, yeah, it there's no real standardization
No,
as
not
far
at
as.
all. For every like company that I see there is no one standardization. Every company has their own scale, has their own PSI, has their own KPA or pounds per inch or pounds per kilo or something like that in terms of pressures, and it's all over the place, right? Again, it all depends on temperature too. So like take all of these measurements with a grain of salt. This is what I just noticed from my experience. But yeah, it's just you know, everyone's familiar with colors, so I'm just gonna go with it, right, rather than
Well,
numbers.
and also the range of it too is that it goes from uh pretty much, I guess, 100 or 90 psi all the way up to, I'm gonna say, maybe 140. Just
Yeah,
because of temperature and stuff like that.
yeah. So, yeah. So black gas, since we're jumping into it, or red gas, is at 135 psi at 900 kPa, or kilopascal. Um, and then we're moving up to black gas, which is about like 200 psi or about 130 or 1370 kPa, 1.3 megapascals at that point. If
Mhm.
if we're talking about kilopascals and megapascals. Um, like I said, it's unknown what these gases use. Again, it's only used in wintertime, so more than likely the white can
hmm
for Puff Dino is probably falling around the 200 psi level, but that's
Mhm.
at that's probably at 20 degrees, right? So if you go lower in the temperature bracket now, then you're reaching up to the red gas or green gas level of a PSI at that point. Again, these are temperatures, right? So that's why it's only recommended to using it at winter time, because when you use it at summertime, then you're increasing your PSI and as well as your KPA to an insane amount that it's gonna break your system, right? So that's why they're using much more powerful gases with higher vapor pressures at those seasons, at temperatures.
When it comes to optimal temperatures. Right?
Yeah, so you gotta watch out for that. I've seen people try to use red gas in the summertime, and probably not a good idea. Because,
a couple broken
20
nozzles.
degrees and it's already at 135 PSI, right? You're basically gonna, like, at 30 degrees, you're basically increasing that to probably 200 PSI to 190, and you're, like, at dangerous levels of breaking your bolt carrier, breaking the spring, right? The spring can only compress so much until you hit the back of the buffer tube on your M4, like, and as well as depending on the manufacturer, either they're using weaker metals and stuff, right? That's basically gonna break away or chip away or at least fatigue all the system that you have there.
And there's also a golden rule though, because like I see that argument online a lot, right? I see it happen a lot in the forums and stuff like that, but I want people to remember and to consider, if your gun is capable of shooting CO2, then yes, it can shoot anything up to black gas, because CO2 is like 800 psi.
Yeah.
So when I see these people arguing that no, your system isn't capable of shooting that, it's like it can, because it can run off of CO2, right?
Yeah.
Now the difference is though is that if you're you're using your green gas mag per se, right, and you don't maintain your seals very well, and you try to put higher pressure inside, well, of course it's going to leak.
This is why I wanted to jump into that portion first, which is basically like gases, its PSIs, and then as well as your magazines, and making sure that O-rings, they're important.
And actually, you bring up a great point that just gave me a shocker in my mind. I don't have the photo anymore, but not to mix up the gases and your magazines, because boom can happen.
Yeah.
Like
it's okay.
boom.
It's okay to do propane and green gas. They are the same chemical compound and the same PSI, kilopascal. But when you start mixing like red gases and then like blue gases, which are totally different compounds, not a good idea, guys. Not a good
like
idea.
If you're like, for example,
you know what, guys?
Blowback
Science demands
pistol, you use a red gas in it, you're probably gonna break your ABS slide or something like that, right?
Science demands it.
So this is why gas blowbacks are temperamental, because of the fact that not only do you have to deal with mechanical issues, but you're also having to deal with gases at this point, right? Let's move on to CO2 here. Popular option for wintertime, because of the fact that it can push out a pretty good you were saying at a vapor pressure of 800 psi, right? That's but roughly, remember that is 20-degree weather, right? We're talking wintertime, so that'll lower if you go down.
Not too much actually, Poi, because CO2 is a dry air. It's not too bad.
It's still gonna go down by a bit. That's why it's used in wintertime, right? Because of the fact that like it's great to use. If your GBBR or GBBP pistol or rifle is designed to shoot CO2 at any weather, then go for it, right? That means that they basically tested it out, make sure that nothing breaks at the amount of, like, what is it, 5.73 megapascals. That's a lot, or 800 psi. That's like, what is it? 4 times as much as the previous numbers that we were working with for methane gases, right?
And one thing to remember too is that freezing temperatures, so at let's say 0 degrees Celsius, right? Or for Americans out there, I think it's like 32 degrees Fahrenheit, if I remember from high school. Is that at freezing temperatures, CO2 is about half its capacity. So it's at about like 475, 450 psi at freezing temperatures. So that's why CO2 is actually used in the wintertime because it's able to still keep above that threshold. Because I imagine if you go below 90 psi, you're not moving anything.
Yeah. But you also you got to consider that, with higher pressures, that means that, you're relying on cartridges at this point rather than the magazines, because they will not hold that amount of pressure that they put in. If you do, and you try to fill that one up in your magazine, it's probably going to blow up. So you want to use the cartridges or capsules, what they call it. It comes in 12 gram, and then I think the next level up is like 18...
36, I think it is.
26, 30, 36, something.
The ones that are like the size of a banana.
Yeah. So, they come in all different shapes and sizes. They're also, not used for only airsoft. They're used for other things as well. You imagine like someone who's going on a bike trip or something. They have capsules of that they could just, shoot into their tires and stuff to get pressure right away, right? It's the highest pressure available for gas blowback systems. I don't know if you can name anything else that's higher than CO2, honestly.
HPA.
I was about to say.
Get out.
Okay. I'm going to head out.
Yeah, my hate for HPA is there. Don't worry, guys. So HPA what is the drawback of HPA now? Is it requires a line, a bigger tank, a much stronger tank, and
things are changing.
Yeah,
well,
I've seen.
The major downside to HPA is requiring either another regulator, depending on the system, a tank, and a line.
Yeah.
Those are the main things. Now, as technology is, changed and stuff like that and whatnot, they're now making it so that the line isn't necessarily on person and it's on your gun, but again,
it's on the stock.
It's it's changing. You never know. We might get into some sort of era where you have some sort of reusable or fillable pistol grip, thing or whatever it is, and it's run off of that,
It's
and
be
you
a
have
fat pistol grip. I could tell you what.
Well, it could be like a completely closed system or something like that, and then it runs 100 shots or something like that, and it's used specifically for the super realistic guys just because of the minimalistic look. But again, that's just me ranting on something that might be.
Again, same principle, stored energy into a magazine, which is basically a tank at that point.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, but you're not using any liquid gases at that point. You're basically using high pressure air. Because it's not stored in a chemical or anything. It's just basically air stored in a tank at very, very compressed, like high pressure air. That's what it is, right? You're not relying on a chemical. You're relying on pressure that you've basically pumped into the tank. Anyways,
well, technically, from what I understand, actually, off the top of my head too, because I just had to look it up, but I just to confirm it, is it's like an oxygen and nitrogen rich liquid that you're compressing, because you are compressing the air in there, right?
Yeah.
And so and if you do, you can weigh your tanks after, and your tanks do change weight after. So it's like I think it still becomes liquid inside. It's just that once it reaches room temperature, right, with the release of a regulator and stuff like that, the main factor is the fact that you're able to change. Like looking at this, right? It's saying that HPA technically runs at like 1100 psi. So I'm assuming that's like full blow maximum capacity kind of thing. So the fact that you have the regulator to stage it down and whatnot just means that you're able to control the amount of air that's coming out, but doesn't change like its property, which is that it's able to vaporize really, really quickly.
Yeah. Now, whether they can store it in a magazine would be cool, because it'll be one of those days where they could actually store it in like, a standard Stanag magazine would be cool without having it blow up.
It would be cool for all the guys like with the tap mags and stuff like that, where instead of having it have to be directly connected, they could just fill it, right? They still have the nozzle on there or whatever it is, maybe, who knows, right? But the fact that as soon as you let go of the line, right, there's no more pressure inside the magazine, right?
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah, because I absolutely hate having GBB destroyed by having a line all the time on your magazine, or at the or converting it into some sort of like a
Well, so
full
how do you
HPA
feel
system.
about the gas drum mags that have as of late been coming out and stuff like that?
That is a good point.
Yeah, we had a taste last year, remember,
Yeah.
during the GBB games. Like, how
Yeah.
did you feel?
So I guess we're jumping out of gases here, and we're going to
Oh,
opinions
sorry.
here. That's fine.
Yeah.
But my take on it is the system is kind of flawed because you're not working with a spring to drive your entire like ammunition count. You're basically working with the hoppers, like sort of like a what is it, like a high
Kind of
capacity
back to paintball.
Yeah, high capacity magazine, which you shake and then you rotate a wheel, then keeps pressure on the BBs that you have in there, and then it pushes up on it, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
I would prefer that it sticks, if especially in my little gas blowback games.
For our games,
yeah, I would prefer that it sticks to the actual magazine count of like a high capacity magazine, right? If it's like 50 rounds, then let's do 50 rounds, right? Or 60, whatever, right?
You want
Then
you want
your-
real mags, right?
So then would your mind change then if it was a positively spring-fed drum magazine?
Yeah,
So
I'm okay
instead
with
of you
that.
having to manually spin it like the drum mag is probably being done, like you're saying,
Yeah.
it's just a spring-fed magazine, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess that's your big problem, is that they're probably carrying what, like 1,200 rounds or
Yeah,
something like that.
that's ultimately, when you're working with gas blowback, especially in a gas blowback game, you want to equalize the playing ground, right? We already have
Real
our own
rounds, yeah.
issues. We already have, we already have to work with gases, right? If you start introducing, HPA, then that changes the game level even more because you're always at a constant pressure. And then on top of that, if you start to add, magazine capacities that are insane amounts to its real counterpart, then it doesn't work because you're basically, the only thing you're relying on at that point is the tank reservoir that you have with all the gases, right? And a hopper system in place to like just keep feeding more ammunition into the system, and you're just having to wind the spring that's in there, right? If it's just a single spring or a line that snakes through the system and then pushes up on the magazine, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Unicorn, the Gas Blowback M249 that had the giant reservoir magazine on it, and it only had, I think it was 350 round BB capacity. I think it was, just because of the fact that
that is a very unicorn gun. They don't exist.
Yeah, I only saw the prototype and never again.
So sorry, going back to gases here, we got off topic there, but it's still part of gas.
Sorry.
So manufacturers, advertising for color codes, we were just talking about different advertising points for all of these. Honestly, if you're a gas blowback enthusiast, try out the different gases. See what works and doesn't work for you. Honestly, there's not a lot of reviews out there talking about. Again, when we started this section of just gases alone, it's just hard to pinpoint what works and doesn't work for you, right? Because again, temperature, different chemicals and gases, different types of gases that you're using. Heck, even just properly maintaining your gun is just one of those things that are a huge factor in gas blowback, especially in the gas blowback community. It's just, you have to self-discover a lot of these things on your own. We were talking about radios the other weekend, how I'm still self-discovering, things in that hobby, right? And as far as Steven was concerned, he's going to a different area of the hobby, right? And in gas blowback world, it's the same thing. It's like a hobby within a hobby at that point, because it's like a sub hobby at that point. So they advertise different pressures, for each bottles, and I just recommend you just go out there and try it out. Let me pull this video of
the real black gas.
The real black gas here, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I'll send you the link here, guys. But live text box, sorry. And this is what black gas looks like.
Hey guys, Christopher from Ballahack. I'm trying out the new Elite Force Glock with our new Ballahack Black Gas, which basically simulates real fire, and it makes it a lot louder. So it doesn't actually increase the FPS in any way, but you might actually want some ear pro on, my dude.
Well, it can't be that loud.
It actually is.
All right.
And it pushes out so much gas, it looks like it has real shells coming out.
What?
I know, right?
No.
It's going to be sick.
What?
So again, what I'm saying is, don't be fooled by the advertising. Don't be fooled by the numbers. Don't be fooled by, the color coding that they have. Go out there, try out the product. If it breaks, then we're gonna move on to a section of maintenance at that point, and as well as like what to watch out for. But yeah, hopefully, this section we covered like gives you an idea of why it's important to look into the different gases that you have, right? Because what Battlehack is, or Swamp Sniper is saying there is no standardization. You could basically just sell something in black gas, but it's really just something else, right? So Mac, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Come on. There you go. Nope.
Sorry, guys.
There you go.
I
Yeah, you're
accidentally
good.
bumped it. But yeah, basically, you gotta try it all.
I know it got me too. I'm like, ooh, black gas, and then
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you gotta get it right. It's a black can of gas. So,
So yeah, that was a meme
the
right
shells
there.
ejecting. That was a nice touch.
So that's a meme right there. But yeah, try it out. Hopefully, this puts a perspective into what gas blowback enthusiasm is all, or being an enthusiast is all about, because it's not just the gas blowback. It's there's gas at the very beginning of that part, so you got to focus on that too. So let's just jump right into this. Why is gas blowback popular? Right? Realism is one of them. Right? We were talking about how it's not one to one, but it's like the functions, the nomenclature, the action, the reloading, they're all the same as the real counterpart, right? We could say that it is like a training tool for a lot of people, right? If you're looking for ergonomics, right, and you want to operate the same as your real AR or whatever it is you're shooting with, it's there. Magazine capacity also matches its real life counterpart. Well, some of it, right? But
to an extent.
Don't forget to pin your Canadian Airsoft mags, boys.
Look, I moved into Airsoft so that I don't have to pin it, okay? Let's not go there, mister. Okay?
Could you imagine? Like, just for a second, that like we had to pin our
Can we
Airsoft.
not?
I'm just saying for the meme of it, right? I'm just saying Canadians would have fastest reload times.
You know what? Next gas blowback game, we're gonna have a couple rounds.
Comment down below if you want Canadian style gas blowback games, right? 5-round magazines. You could do 10-round pistol magazines, and
yeah, there we go. That's it.
And you can't bring your pistols because it's restricted.
Well, you know what? That way, everyone just stay at home. Everything's prohibited.
and then we'll do another one where you have to California reload.
Oh.
Yo, that would be so hectic on so many levels.
You're basically loading one BB into the chamber at all times at that point.
Yeah.
Every time you shoot,
like, oh, my upper's stuck.
So realism is one of them. Recoil is another one. It's popular because it's cool recoil. A lot of people say, "Oh, look, it shoots like a 22." Honestly, it does not. Okay, let's be honest here. You could very much control the recoil in a gas blowback, especially in full auto too. Having that recoil when the action is moving and the BB shot, the action or the bolt carrier pushes back on you, and then it pushes another BB, and that's why it's popular, right? We talked about training tool. It's cheaper to use BBs and safer, and it's also a safer alternative to training with your real steel as well, right? Because you can shoot indoors with this. Your neighbors aren't going to kill you because you're training at home firing fake BBs, right?
It's more easily controlled.
Yeah, and again, reload
without hurting anyone.
Yeah, and if you're training with reloads or anything like weapon manipulation, it's there, right? It's simulated in there. And it's something different, right? GBB platform offers some much more different handling than AEG or HPA counterparts, right? Because of the fact that you're matching it with its real life counterpart, right? That's all in the fun of it. Now, the downside of GBB. Now, this is like everybody laughs because everybody knows, like, if you own a GBB, there's a huge downside to it, right? I'm gonna start with price. It's gonna be expensive, right?
Yeah.
Magazines are very expensive. Parts are expensive because you're using sort of real, like, metal, not real steel parts, but like metal parts that are a lot more harder to manufacture. You have to, strengthen them, heat treat them and stuff, and it's a lot more different than plastic parts. Unless you're using a GBB that is all plastic, then that's a different story. But yeah, it's there's a lot of downside to owning a GBB.
Is your gun working today?
Did you know I spent the entire week weekend repairing them.
Ah.
Right?
Yeah, he's got them all ready, Tack. I'm kind of excited to see what's gonna happen.
Ready to break.
Yeah, I didn't say what you're gonna do with them.
So
you put gas in on one end, guys, and your hopes and dreams come out the other.
Someone give me that meme right now. I wanna show the audience about that because I forgot about that. But let's move on here. Temperature is a big one. That is the downside, is temperature. You're only able to use, especially in our region here, right? Especially in Canada here, you're only getting summertime usage out of it, right? For a regular gas blowback user. If you're a true enthusiast, you're gonna try and use it in the wintertime. Try. I mean, there are some people out there. Yeah, so summertime only. A lot of moving parts in a gas blowback, especially if you don't know what you're doing and you start looking at the gas blowbacks, right? It's kind of like in the AEG world where there's a lot more tinier parts. In gas blowbacks, there's a lot of large moving parts, and you have to, like, basically know what part hits what and what friction, right? And if you're getting a lot more friction in one area and a lot of wear on the other, or you need to lubricate it, you need to make sure there's oils on it, you got to make sure that your O-rings are maintained properly. It's also a big one with cleaning and relubing of your gas blowback platform. That's a big one. Yeah, it's like maintaining a real steel firearm at that point, because it's just big moving parts, but minus the controlled explosion that you get from a real steel, counterpart. Another one is the cooldown factor. If you're gonna fire a lot or in full auto, right? We're working with like liquid gas or chemical gas at this point, and it has its limits to continuous rapid fire events, right? Some of you will notice that the gas, as the gas keeps pushing out, it'll basically freeze up or cool down the system, and it'll just basically like stop shooting at that point because it can't push out anymore. It's frozen the system or the action until it's warm enough again. So I don't know if you guys ever seen that. I don't think that's an issue for HPA systems though, because you're just using compressed air at that point. Is that right?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
It's typically how it goes.
Yeah, so that's why HPA systems are popular.
It's superiority. Sorry.
Get out of here. This is my show today.
I'm leaving. Bye.
It's like that SpongeBob beep. I'm ahead. All right, I'm ahead out.
I'm ahead out.
I can see where I'm not wanted.
Again, a big downside is it's outclassed by AEGs and HPAs, right? Range, speed, reliability.
For performance-wise, I guess playability. When it comes down to just pure skirmish playability, right? No bullshit around it, guys, right? You might try and fight me on this. I don't care about your opinion on this.
No.
For playing, right? if you're all on a weekend skirmish, right, there is no holds bar. That guy with the umbrella armory gun is going to kick your ass every single time.
Yeah, and as a gas blowback user, I agree to it as well, because there is no way I can match someone who can fire 300 rounds, with one magazine versus me with 30 rounds on one magazine, and especially when they're even further than me, and either I'm trying to push up or I'm trying to range him with my gas blowback, and it's unreliable because as I keep firing, then the pressures drop or the temperatures change, or just the BB going flying everywhere. Right,
Yeah,
I'm not going to get a consistency from someone with an AEG or even an HPA system. So it is outclassed. That's why I put it in here as a downside. That's why I prefer to run gas blowback versus gas blowback games only, because of the fact that everyone's an equal playing ground.
Exactly. You take that downside out of it, and which in turn turns it into a positive, because everyone has the same thing, right? You're going to end up having more fun because you're going to have the same slip-ups.
Yeah. So as far as magazine capacity is concerned, right, we were just talking about it, right? Someone with a high capacity magazine, 300 round magazine, who could then rapid fire at you much faster than a 30 round magazine, which also holds, remember, your stored energy, which is the gases. So yeah, you're clearly outmatched at that point.
Yeah. And like, the way I look at it too is, for a guy to be able to compete on a GBB level with an AEG, he's going to probably end up spending 3 to 4 times as much as that AEG guy just to get it to perform, as well as all like the custom mods they're probably going to have to do to get it to work. Right? So
parts and repair, depending on your manufacturer, is going to be very hard to find, and also techs are very hard to find. I don't classify myself as a tech. I classify myself as someone who can just talk to the gun and be like, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" And
gun whisperer.
I'll rack the bolt. I'll rack the bolt and be like, "This is dirty." Proceeds to open it, starts cleaning it. 30 minutes later, here it's shooting fine.
So this meme is for you.
Let's see this meme. Yes, okay. So this is what the guys are talking about. So here we go. How GBBR gas blowback rifle works. You got your hopes and dreams coming up from the magazine. Your magazine's leaking. Oh, look, a jam, another jam. Oh, look, more leaks. And here comes the BB coming out, crushing disappointment. You literally summed up my life in gas blowback in one picture.
But still so worth it. So worth it.
I'm going to be honest, guys. This is what gas blowback ownership is all about, right? You're basically testing it out, making sure it works, and then breaks. Again, there's so many variables that'll make it not work. It's like, is it worth it? I don't know. I guess
you tell me.
Yeah. I guess we could jump into the myths of using gas blowback here. What are your guys' myths on it? For me, people say, "Oh, I could use it in wintertime." I'm like, okay, sure. Like, are we talking about like you're just using green gas and then using it in winter? Because that's only gonna last like a couple of rounds and then you're gonna freeze up. Because
I've seen that TM MWS system working pretty damn good in the winter, and I've seen the guys like run it in like negative temperatures, like run it hard,
are they
full
using
auto.
Are they using just regular green gas though? Because they must be using. So they must have TM must have a really good NPAS system on that, unless it's stock. Are we talking stock?
I wouldn't even say the MPAS system. I think like it just has a really good seal. Like when it comes down to stuff like that, like the seal is really, really important. Like, because with the MPAS system, you actually end up like what people get confused with is that it doesn't change what comes out of the magazine. So like if you want to change what comes out of the magazine, you have to change your output valves where they have like tornado valves.
From what I remember, I don't own a MWS system, but from what I remember from the reviews that came out, I've noticed that like how efficient it is at keeping the seals. You're right, and as well as a lot less moving parts in there. Well, it is because it's a full travel system as well for the bolt carrier, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the MWS came late in the game in terms
Definitely.
of gas blowback, right? TM entered the market like way, way late in the game, but to its advantages, right? Their R&D department is good. They figure things out. They min-max everything to the max, right? And they make sure that the seals are proper, right? So this is well worth your money. I'm going to put it down there. It is well worth your money if you could use it in the wintertime too, right? Without having to change the gases, right?
Yeah.
I would still recommend using a higher pressure gas in the wintertime because remember, right, gas operates in different temperatures, right? So I would say work with the red gas or something like that for that time, right? But
well, if I remember, the guys with green gas were shooting 360, like 366 or something like that with what the system that they had. But the system itself was so well built that they're still able to do like it has a really nice hop up system in it, so they're able to hop really really far even with the low FPS. Me personally, having been able to look at it and shoot it and take it apart a little bit, I'm impressed with the robustness of the whole system. Like the firing system on it, like the bolt is nice and robust. The trigger system on it, like the hammer and everything, is really really robust compared to some of the other platforms that I've seen where they're a little more smaller, little more like they're minimized versus other parts of the gun and stuff like that. So that's the thing that I saw was so when people sort of see the price point, I can argue that it's to be worth it.
Now I want to ask this: is like is this a standard TM sort of design where a lot of it is plastic parts?
No, it's all metal.
It's all metal. Okay. So
yeah, the MWS system is mostly those guns are, I believe, like 90% metal, right? Ty?
Wow.
It's all metal.
Then
other than the buttstock.
I need to get my hands on one, and I need to start getting into the MWS system because it sounds like it's a really good system.
Yeah, but I can compare it to the PTS one because I've also seen the PTS Maiden system, and that as well was a really nice system in my opinion. I've seen a few guys with them left around still coming to the field and whatnot, and I tell them that they have a really really nice system. Like again, same thing like the MWS, robust parts.
I've used the PTS version of what is it, the Mark 17 platform that Dayton had. It actually I think we received a first prototype because there was a lot more faults on it because it wasn't feeding properly, it wasn't this, it's just measurements are off and stuff like that. And you know, as far as like holding the gas and stuff, it wasn't holding enough because it was trying to use a lot more gas when it's trying to push this really, really heavy bolt carrier system, right? And it wasn't working out very well because there's a lot of friction. You know, I tried my best to, you know, shave it down and lube it down as much as I can, but, you know, it seems like TM has gotten it down to a fine art of using stored energy from a gas and pushing it out, and then as well as carrying your entire bolt system, right? I have to get my hands on it. I have to see what the weight of the bolt carrier is. I have to see what springs they're using and such because it sounds like it's a nice system, yes, but you know, not being able to hold it and being able to use it and being able to feel what it's doing, right? Especially for a gas system that is very temperamental. You know, it's one of those things that I do want to jump into and see. I'm more used to the Wii systems, GHK, and a little bit of the VFC systems because I've had to repair a few people's VFCs. Yeah, again, they have their own sort of problems, they have their own sort of temperament, and they have their own sort of like issues along the way. Yeah, again, winter usage, yeah, possible with an MWS. It's possible, you know, if you know what you're doing with your gases, and then as well as how your nozzle like works and stuff, and as well as like using proper lubricants throughout the season. Yeah, it all depends, right? We have things like end pass nozzle systems. Do they work? End pass is just negative pressure air system. it basically just controls your FPS on the fly. Well, not really on the fly. You have to use a tool to control how much comes out.
Relatively on the fly. Let's be real. Like
it is.
if you have the tool for it, you're not having to disassemble your gun.
Yeah. Or have to change the bolt carrier to a much weaker because in the Wii systems you could always change to a lower to
Just
a lower
small, yeah.
no to a lower nozzle, lower FPS nozzle, or high FPS nozzle. There's about 3 of them: regular, lower, and higher FPS nozzles.
Yeah, well, they have the magnetic one, and then they have
I've seen the magnetic ones. Yeah,
the adjustable Allen key one as well.
Yeah, I tend to stick with stock. Stock is king, but does NPass work? Yeah, they do work. There's again, depending on what company you go for, there are systems in place where you could just buy a lower FPS nozzle or higher FPS nozzles, and that's the beauty of Gas Blowbacks. Is you could just remove the bolt carrier if you could afford another bolt carrier, and then put another bolt carrier that has just swap the bolt carriers, right? It's just like the real deal. Right. With the NPass, you can basically just take a tool and basically just turn the knob on it, just to control the FPS. So you can control the hop up, and then you control the FPS. So that's not bad. It works.
The advantages I see it in are like a lot of the short barrel stuff, like the MP5s, the Uzis.
Especially if you want to get into CQB games, right? You want to lower that, right? Or just buy a low FPS nozzle.
Yeah.
Another myth is silicone lube sprays. You've seen those pretty much everywhere in like airsoft stores. Yes, they do work, but
silicone lube sprays, you're gonna have to elaborate.
Okay, so it's basically like like an aerosol can, but it just sprays lube everywhere. Have you seen those? Where you have like a bottle and you just spray all over let's say your Glock.
Are you saying like the aerosol lubricants?
Yeah.
Like the ones from Nupro and Puff Dino and whatnot?
I'm not a big fan of that. Why? Because when you're maintaining, your system, you're not just gonna spray an entire like coat of lubricant on moving parts. Right, I would much rather, like if you spray it and then you just put it back together and just rack it a bunch of times. What's the lubricant gonna do? It's only gonna collect a lot more gunk from the outside, right? Your dust, your debris, and everything, and then it's just gonna get pushed around by the action of the gun. And then what's that gonna do? It's gonna gunk up your pistol or your gas blowback system. Yes, there's some lubricant in it, right? Or silicone spray, whatever. And it'll seem like the motion is moving much more smoothly because it's lubricant, but over time you're basically just pushing more gunk into areas that you don't want in your system, right? As the action goes. I would much rather clean up the system, right? With the alcohol wipe. A lot of people use alcohol wipes. That's cool too. I just use a regular rag, clean it up, remove all the gunk. It's when you see a white towel become black, then you know that there's a lot of gunk, because the lubricants they use, or the lubes that you use, or the oils that you use are basically catching all of this debris and stuff. This is why it's important to clean it constantly, especially in the summertime when you're using it every weekend. Clean it after a game. And yeah, just spraying the system is not going to help you. You got to clean it, right? And you got to make sure that it's clean, properly cleaned, and then you could spray it a little bit, but I would prefer to take a little bit of silicone lubricant, on my fingertips, and just like coat the parts that have wear on it, so that you're not adding a whole bunch of crap in it, so that it could collect more crap from it. Just for me, it's like a fine art. I just look at it and then check out the wears, and then put a little bit of lubricant on it, right? If there's no wear on it, why bother putting like lubricant on it? Because that's just silly to have it. Things like the bolt carrier will need lubricant on it. You got to make sure that you look for those wearing out spots, so that anything that's grinding together is like well lubricated. Do you guys have any other myths before I move on to the next one here?
Well, I think the maintenance things and stuff like that is like
I
the
think
myths
that's
of
where
it,
there's myths are.
like where it comes down to like one oil is all oil kind of thing. Like for me, I have all kinds, right? Like I have everything from like heavyweight all the way to lightweight because it all depends on also the temperature, really what it comes down to, right? Like in the wintertime, I'm going to be using that aerosol spray stuff that you're talking about just because it's going to be able to get everywhere while it's still cold, right? If I use the Airsoft Innovation grenade oil, which is like a 30 weight oil or something like that, right? It's not going to be, as viscous, and
Yeah, the viscosity. Yeah.
and so it's it's not gonna. It might actually do more harm to it, right? So there's that, and then I guess like the other myth too is that you don't have to put silicone oil with propane. Like I've gotten into this argument with a lot of people saying that they don't need to actually put oil in the lubricant or like the lubricant into their mags and stuff like that. And then those are the same people who bring their mags to me to need them fixed 4 or 5 months later. So I don't really know what to say about that.
We'll get into mag maintenance when we get into the maintenance portion, because that is a big portion of gas blowback ownership.
So I guess another one too is that gas blowback guns can shoot bullets. Let's
oh my God, no. Here, can you bring up the one that I posted, please? Thank you. Yes.
Well, just the whole fact that like a lot of people seem to like to really hang on this fact, and mostly it's from people who aren't even part of the community who really like to hang on this fact, and really hate to say it, but I feel like there's like at least 10 different ways that are easier to shoot a bullet than trying to get your airsoft gas gun to shoot a bullet, to be quite honest with you. So, I that's one myth. I think there's been a couple people out there who tried to debunk this as well. I believe there was actually one guy who tried to put a real bullet in his airsoft gun, shot it, and the gun blew up, I think it was.
Yeah, first of all, you're not going to be able to fire that because there's no firing pin.
Well, he manipulated it where there was.
Yeah, you have to manipulate it, but it's still not going to live up because you have no actual
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what he did, but he went to the extent of like heavily manipulating everything to get it to work, and it worked once, but it didn't even work in the sense of like it worked. It shot and it blew up.
So Mac put a link below. I'll put it down at the comment section as well about myth busting. AR-15 can you build a real gun with an airsoft part? What's the verdict on this? I'm just gonna play a little bit of it. What's the conclusion on this, Mac?
Well, the TLDR is yes, they are close. Yes, there are similar things, and yes, some things might work, but in the end, no, it doesn't work without heavy modifications and a person who knows what they're doing with actual intent behind it, like a gunsmith or something. Maybe, but absolutely not. There's tolerances, there's differences, and everything. It is so much. He goes through the entire build. Like, yeah, it's definitely worth a video because you kind of get worried in the beginning, but then at the end of it, you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, he's being pretty much satirical through the entire thing. If you take it seriously when he's like, oh yeah, and then this will start working.
Yeah, just slap this together. Like, no, that's not how it works. Like, yeah, it's worth the watch.
Yeah, I could already tell the plastic top receiver is not going to do. But yeah, link is at the description there. Yeah, that's another big myth is gas blowback cannot be converted into real firearms, just like AEG cannot be converted into a real firearm. I don't know. It's just
yeah. I know. People have fantasies, and they think those are our fantasies, but those are
for some reason they think that like a criminal or something like that, because that's always what they say. They're always like, oh, the criminals are gonna do that. It's like, dude, trust me, the criminal is not spending 3 days trying to figure out how to retrofit
Oh my
this
God.
airsoft gun, okay, which costs more than a real gun. Okay, gas blowback rifles now are so niche and so like top tech that they're worth like you can buy a real steel legally cheaper than most
quarter of the price, yeah.
yeah. Oh my God, it's shocking. It's shocking.
Yeah. So the link is this. The link is at the description below, guys, if you want to watch it. But yeah, long story short, you can't. There's no way. Another big myth is GBB sniper rifles. Again, we're working with like an action here, and most sniper rifles, especially semi-auto sniper rifles, we're not talking about like bolt action ones. The bolt action ones is considered a closed bolt system, but again, you're still working out of the pressures from you know your common gases here. You know, Dayton has a good example of a bunch of videos where he's just using an HPA system on a on his bolt action rifles, and his energy comes from the HPA system. So with semi-automatic sniper rifles, being that they have much larger bolt carriers, much larger breech blocks and stuff, the gas that they're gonna have to use is basically most of the power comes from just pushing the system back, right? The action, and then pushing it down again, right? Because they're working with much larger caliber like bullets, right? So if like, and on top of that, you're relying on the the temperamental pressures, and as well as the temperature of that day for your gases to push out a BV at a certain range, right? That's why HPA is king, right? Unless you're using a CO2 system, that's awesome too. But something like Barrett M82, there is really no way of doing that with the traditional system, unless it's like an HPA system, which can then push out a lot more energy. I'll show you guys a video here. Let's see here. I'll give it to you guys too. This one uses a system that it's a Barrett M82, and each bullet has a 12 gram CO2 cartridge, and it uses 8mm BBs. And
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's a cool system. It uses it's similar to what we were just talking about here, right? The action is there because there's a spring on the bolt carrier, and then
it's semi though, right? Yeah, it is semi.
No, but it chambers another it chambers another bullet in. Or in
so you have to rack it.
No, you don't even have to rack it. Once it's semi-auto, so once you fire it, right, the energy from that 112 gram CO2 cartridge pushes the bolt carrier all the way back, and then loads another bullet in. So you'll see it here in a moment where he fires it. Pretty simple system, right? Like a Barrett is a semi-automatic sniper rifle. So it just loads the next round in automatically. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think this one runs off of an HPA system, if I remember correctly, but let me just look it up. But that's pretty cool.
Very neat.
All right, well, enough of myths here. Let's get into how we get started in the GBB world here. The reason I went through a lot of, scaring people into not getting a system, and, giving the temperament of, using gases and what GBB is all about, and a lot of the downsides is it's very expensive to start into the system. I don't recommend it.
Quite a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't recommend it for a lot of people, especially ones that do not take care of their guns very well. That's what.
Definitely, yeah, not
That,
for lazy people.
yeah, that's why I didn't want to jump into how to get started at the very beginning, because I don't honestly want people to dive into this, waste a lot of money, and be like, I don't like this, and then sell a used. And this is why I buy a lot of used guns, is because people find that it's just GBB. Like, the GBB world is just way too temperamental, right? It's not something I wish people to jump into and be like, oh no, I hate this afterwards, because it is, it is like blah. It's it I'm not having fun, right? You need a regular AEG first to, that's why we told you at the very beginning, you need a regular AEG first, or at least some sort of, one or two guns before jumping into the GBB system, because of the fact that it is just a very temperamental like tool to use. Do you guys have any inputs on this?
Well, it's like I just know from my experience, it's like it goes one thing after the other, right? And if you thought, and I'm being quite honest with a lot of people here, okay? It's like if you thought it was expensive wanting to have like 4, 5, 6 magazines in airsoft with an AEG, and then you lose that mag on a weekend or something like that. Imagine you're carrying $500 worth of magazines on you, and you lost 3 of them. Let that sink in. Now you got to go buy another 3 $80 each mags. Sometimes they are, right? So, a lot of thinking's got to get involved. You got to really put it into perspective of why you're getting it, right? Like we were talking about earlier, right? It's like if you're getting a gas blowback to skirmish on the weekend, unless you're playing in like a gas blowback only game, or you really like that set of challenges on yourself, it's really just a waste of money for you, right? If you're getting into it because you want to train because ammo's expensive, or you're not able to, train at the range as much as you want or something like that, that's a reason to get into it and whatnot, right? Especially with the fact that you can transfer certain things and whatnot, like your accessories or whatever, right? But like, yeah, that's my sort of look at that.
Mac, what about you? I know you're not, like, you love gas blowbacks, but what is it that gets you going on this? Like,
Well, I mean, so like for me, like I definitely enjoy playing with them. I haven't had as much experience as you guys per se. Like, I mean, definitely, and especially for me, like my pistol, like so if my gas blowback pistol is sitting on my side, uh and it doesn't come out unless it's for like like an emergency, like right, it's my first line belt, so it's like the first thing I go to when I need to, but it doesn't happen often. So like that, I do train a lot with it, and I do train a lot with our gas blowback platform and stuff like that, and I enjoy the mechanics of it and everything like that. So I do like it for that factor. Kind of like, I wouldn't say solely, because I do really enjoy the organic gameplay from coming and playing our gas blowback only games, right? It's really nice when it's just all like you're doing a round count and all of a sudden you lose count in your head. You're like, oh my god, I don't know I don't know how to tack reload.
Reload.
Exactly. Like I'd rather have a full mag than half mag, but then you got to re-index that mag, and you're like, okay, I got something left in that.
My favorite is a chamber check.
So.
I do a chamber check. I'd be like,
oh yeah, when you do a press check or something.
I do a chamber check, rack, and it'd be like, oh well, that was the last round. Reload. So
yeah, but I definitely enjoy it. So like for me, it's I guess I would say I'm kind of like broad. I'm all over the place on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all over the place in terms of gas blowback. So let's just get started here. Manufacturers and trusted brands to look for. So of course, all 3 of us use Wheeze. The reason I use Wheeze is because it's compatible. Like, parts are easy to find for me. I trust it because it's the first GBB that I've used. My Scar L is the first one. It's still actually, it's not there anymore. The shell is there, but the internals are kind of gone because at this point. But from the very beginning, I knew how to take care of it. I knew it's temperamental. I knew like the weather was affecting it, the wear was affecting it. So for me, I just talk to it, right? I know what's wrong with it and stuff. And for me, Wii's are much easier to find parts for because, you know, you could go to like a website like KY Airsoft and get part numbers for each part that you need. They have parts for everything. Is it a trusted brand? I mean, if you know how to take care of it like a real steel counterpart, then I would say go for it. You know, like I said, these guys say, like, I talk to my guns and I know what's wrong with it. Be like, oh, this is slowing down, or oh, this is like, you know, if I rack it, it'll be like, yeah, this is not the way it's supposed to be. There's way too much friction, or, you know, the magazine's like, oh, this one's not outputting as much. This is magazine number 3. Okay, I probably need to change like the valve, the O-rings, or whatever, right? Or I need to maintain it properly.
Is talking to me.
yeah, no, I get the same thing too. Yeah, if you know how to maintain it properly, then go for it. If you want something on the spectrum of, you want to use it and forget it, I would say go with the MWS or the GHK system. Make sure to get it brand new. That's one of those. That's one of those things that is the big factor here. Yeah, is make sure you get it brand new, guys.
What's a good budget GBB?
I'm gonna go with Wii. Actually,
bro, that's like $800 though.
Okay, yeah, you got me there. Well, we're not calculating the mags either. Remember, mags are very expensive, and since we're talking about mags, compatibility with other platforms, right? If we're talking about Wii to GHK, not gonna work. We're like, if we're talking about the same brand, as in like, you know, if we go with Wii, I could fit a standard Stanag mag with, you know, Scar L to their M4, to their L85, to their PDW, to their what else is there? There's a whole bunch of other ones that'll fit it, right?
Pretty sure you can even get this Stanag adapter for their G36 platform as well.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's just if you're looking for flexibility, right, you got to make sure that company, right, has other platforms that can fit a standard M4 mag or a Stanag magazine or a Magpul magazine. And the only two platforms, or the only two brands that I can think of is Wii and GHK that'll do that, because they have all kinds of different GBB platforms under their systems, and yeah, if you have an AK GHK, AK-74 GHK and an AKM, for some reason, both the AKM magazine, which is the standard stamp steel one, versus the plastic one, they fit in both systems. But anyways, that's just me nitpicking at it at this point. But yeah,
7.62 versus 5.54 or something, right? Like, it's like, oh
anyways, yeah, that, you know, their AKs are AKs apparently, but if you're looking for, you know, something to shoot and forget, again, we're talking about an MWS system. I think it's only an M4 at this point, right? There's no AK
at the moment.
At the moment, right? Was there an AK attack?
They teased one, didn't they?
I believe so. Okay. If we look here, there was one released April 17th.
Ooh.
I remember seeing videos of this earlier. Actually, a lot of people were saying that it wasn't going to happen.
Let's see what it looks like. Oh wow. Wait. So if TM does this really well, and it's more efficient than the GHK or the AK system, or the Wii system, I think people are going to move into this, because remember, TM basically sets the standards for a lot of things, but that is nifty looking. Oh man. Okay. You know what? I might just move into the MWS system at this point.
Hey.
We'll see. I mean, the problem is, right, for me, I've already heavily invested into like Wii and GHK, right? And I already know how it operates and works, and I know its temperaments, and I basically know how to repair them, right? Moving into a new system, I would have to do the same thing over again, right? Buy magazines, right? Buy parts, and then figure out how they work. So, again, like I don't want to get into a price war here, but
well, just get what you can afford.
get what you can afford.
At the end,
Yeah, that's really what it is.
It's really up to you.
Well, because that's always what I always say to people. Like, look, you can regret it later. It's okay, guys. Like, you're either gonna sell it off or you're gonna try your darndest to keep it and everything like that. But like that's it. Like, you can regret the decision later, but get it now. If you can afford it now, you get it now. Okay, guys. Like, be responsible and stuff. Yeah, like, don't be stupid, right? But like, guys, like, and this is why I always I have a hard time telling new players or anything like that not to do something or to do something, because like, God knows when I have it in my head that I want to buy something, there's no one in the world, not even TAC, that can stop me from doing it. Right? So it's like,
yeah.
Hey, look, my taxes just came in and I got this much.
Mm-hmm.
My wallet.
It's always
didn't even make it there.
It's like, what?
What? When I get, I don't even tell you. I just tell you it's home.
Yeah, it's like,
hey.
hey, I have something new. What? Oh.
So how to get started? Ultimately, it's up to you what your price point is, what platform you want even, and I can't, we can't put a number on this or anything, but it's really up to you what you want. And then once you stick with it, right? This is the reason why I don't want to get into an MWS system, because of the fact that I would have to restart, the collection all over again, right? I would want something, I would continue on with Wii and work with their problems, and I know what their problems are, and I could easily troubleshoot it right away.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, maintenance is the big one. And this is the most important part, because everything to do with GBB is all about maintenance. We were talking about how maintaining a GBB is almost similar to maintaining a real steel firearm, right? So after you fire it, you want to clean it, right? I mean, some people don't, and you get carbon buildup, whatever. It's the same thing with GBB. You fire it, especially in a dusty day, or or if you've been crawling all day and you're and your bolt catch was open while you're crawling, like dust everywhere, right?
Horrible.
So, poor old gun. I don't even think it'll cycle.
Kills me.
You know that meme where they put where they open up the AK, put like beans all over it, rack it, and then fire.
Let's put it in the dirty water. Don't
do that. They throw it, run over it with a car. It's like,
Hey! At least for GBBs, if you go in water, you gotta make sure that the the dust cover is covered, right? You go in water, you come out, you can still fire. Try it out with an AEG. You're gonna get shocked.
Exactly.
Didn't Alphonse did a video on that?
Yeah. None of his shots hit the target.
Yeah, love that guy, by the way.
One. So good.
So let's just go to the basics. Do a teardown on your GBB. If you're afraid of doing a teardown, don't even bother owning a GBB. Honestly, guys. Yeah. Take out the bolt carrier. Take out the what do you call it?
Well, you carry your group. You gotta take out your charging handle. You gotta
take out the charging handle. Take out the spring at the back. Take out the buffer too. Not the buffer, but the buffer spring, and clean the heck out of it, right? And then look at your nozzle, right? Make sure that it hasn't destroyed itself or anything, because the nozzle is what pushes the BB into the what do you call it, the hop up group, and make sure just make sure that it's all cleaned up and then re-lubed. Make sure that all the wear marks have lube on it, like some sort of silicone lube, right? Don't put lube on things that are still shiny and hasn't worn, because that is just useless, right? Put it on the stuff that's wearing out, because that's where you want to prevent friction, right? And if it's naturally wearing out, then that's fine, because hey, you got replacement parts, and that's where you're gonna end up replacing stuff, right?
Exactly.
Things like O-rings, right? We're talking about O-rings. That's important, right? Remember, we're working with gas. Gases need to be controlled with your O-rings, right? Companies out there will sell their own O-rings, so if you could figure out what sizes of O-rings they are, then see if you could fit it. But Yeah, save some money and buy those small little O-rings at what is it, Princess Autos and stuff. I have like a booklet full of it. But they are important. Why are they important? Because they keep your gas vapors in the magazine. Certain magazines will require, OEM O-rings. So make sure you buy those at the manufacturer site, or like for me, it's like KY Airsoft for Wii stuff, or what is it, Samoon for GHK. All Taiwanese companies. Big one is this is really important, especially if you're running GBB, especially in summers. Buy spare parts, right? Remember at the very beginning we talked about buying spare parts for like Wii or something where they had an open bolt system kit, right? Buy that because it's cheaper than buying like individual parts on its own. Why? I don't know why, but it's what it is.
It's weird that way.
Yeah, it's weird that way, but hey, it saves money. That's a good pro tip. Magazine maintenance is a big one. Again, making sure that you don't put dry gas or propane into your magazine. All right, make sure that you put green gas, which has silicone lubricant on it already. That'll prevent it from leaking from the O-rings that you put in there. Right, that's an important one.
And grease as well.
Grease as well, yeah. Oils.
Yes,
Yeah.
oils.
Oils are important. And lastly, once you're done, storage. Storage is key. Do not store your magazines without any gas on it.
Well, as well as don't leave them stored in your car in the summer
On a hot day.
on a hot day.
That's just asking. That's just asking to blow up your magazines, or remember.
Unless you want a grenade. Some people are crazy that way. But I'm not saying do that.
But yeah, the reason I say gas up your magazines not to full capacity, but to like a quarter, right? You just take the magazine, empty it, and then regas it again with green gas, not propane. Is you want those oils to seep into the corners and stuff, and you don't want it to like have maximum pressure, so that when you come back next year, right, and you degas it and then gas it again, it's not leaking, right? The number one issue with magazines is leaks, and the reason is it's improper storage or improper maintenance, right? It's a little bit of both, right? So yeah, so that is it. That like clean it like you would clean a real steel gun. If you don't own a real steel gun, then I don't know. Should you own a gas blowback? I mean, you could. It's an introduction.
Should you own a gas blowback?
It's an introduction to real steel, if that's what you want to get into. I mean, it teaches you proper nomenclature for real steel weapons at that point. Any questions? I guess we're not a live audience right now.
Yeah, I was just gonna be like, any questions, guys?
Some guy randomly pops into your
Thank
window.
you for not asking any questions.
Yeah.
All the kids in the chat are just all like, how come you always ignore us in live chat? And it's all like, these are pre-recorded episodes. Oh, really?
Anyways, hopefully that gets, we dove deep into GBBR here, or GBB. Gas blowback, includes pistol, but we've already talked about pistols, so I want to talk about the rifles at this point. And yeah, there's a lot of factors to get into when it comes to GBB, and they're very, very temperamental and very expensive. And why do we even own these things? I don't know, guys.
Why do we?
We're losers.
Okay, all right.
Why do I keep throwing money at this and it keeps breaking?
Hopes and dreams, boy. Hopes
Yeah.
and dreams. Mixture of hopes, a little bit of dreams.
I just like the pain, I guess. I don't know. Oh my gosh. Yeah, hopefully you guys learned something from this, and if you want to get into the gas blowback, like games and
Think
stuff,
about it.
Think about it, and yeah, it's that's why I always like to run separate games. My visit to Hawaii has taught me that you could definitely run your own separate gas blowback games, and then I realized that their pace is much more different than someone running an HPA or a AEG or a Springer, right? And it's a far more different gameplay than anything else. So yeah, if you have a lot of money to spend, come join us.
There you go.
Yeah.
If
Again,
you got some money burning a hole in your
I'm
pocket,
just imagining the next Gas Blowback game. Some guy playing his bender, coming over, flashing his cash.
but no, seriously,
like
guys.
here I
Like,
am with my
don't
MWS and my Cry Precision.
don't just jump into this, right? Think about it, and then you have some serious money to spend, because initial investment is quite heavy versus a regular AEG, right? So this is why we give you warnings. This is why we give you guys all these heads up before you get started, because it is, once you get into the system, it's just very temperamental. It's unpredictable. It is sometimes.
But if you like spending money,
I think that's enough. I think they get it.
okay, all right.
I think that's
I gotta pound it in their heads for that, because it's expensive.
It is.
And if anyone disagrees with me, I'll see you on the weekend.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching this episode, guys. Hopefully, like I said, you've learned a lot of things from this. Any comments from you guys before we close out?
I just like to remind everyone, yes, we're talking about GBB. Why? Because it's going to be hot. So just a reminder for everyone, as the season changes, you should also change your weekend attire. And if you don't, we're going to be questioning you and probably hosing you down because you're overheating. So remember, stay cool, stay hydrated.
Wear shorts.
Yeah, basically that guy's dressed for the weather and stuff like that. Like I know, as of this weekend, I think we have like just a bit more of some spring showers and stuff, and then possibly a really nice day on Sunday and everything like that. So other than that, just like Tax says, guys, make sure that you are following all of our rules and our guidelines, guys. Staying hydrated, wearing your proper footwear and stuff like that. You're bringing your proper game play and game attitude to the field and to the community. Guys, COVID's still a thing, so let's make sure that we're mindful of all of our COVID guidelines and rules and regulations and such. Again, stay safe out there, and yeah, hope to see you guys out this weekend.
All right, and that is episode 45, guys. We'll see you guys on the next not live stream. Damn it. We'll see you guys on the next Panther Airsoft Folding Table Talk, guys. This is Poi. We got Tack down there. And we got Mac over here. All right. We'll see you guys on the next podcast. Goodbye.
Spirit fingers.